Hi, everyone. My name is Sam Cardamone. I am the director in the Study Abroad office, and I am joined by two past students who have studied at the Université Paul Valéry in Montpellier, France. Brianna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Brianna. I studied abroad at Montpellier in the fall 2019 semester, right before everything went up in flames. And it was a really great experience for me. I got to be immersed in French a lot and also to travel a lot. And I will be answering questions about all of it.
Perfect. And Brianna, what were your majors when you were at Geneseo?
I was studying English and French, and I had a minor in linguistics. So I was a senior in my last year of French major by the time I got there.
Perfect. And also joining us is Rebecca. Rebecca, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm actually a Binghamton student, so I was able to do this program through Geneseo, even though I go to Binghamton. So it is possible if you go to other SUNY schools to do this program. It was not really that hard to transfer. Um, and I'm a graphic design and French major with a minor in linguistics. I was at Montpellier in the spring 2020 semester, so I was only there for like 2 months. But it was still like a fantastic experience, and I wish it had been longer. But I also had to deal with all the coming back early and flying back during the pandemic and stuff. So it was an interesting experience.
Well, really thankful to have you both here. I'm going to share my screen, which will take us through some slides, and I will pitch some questions to Brianna and to Rebecca to get to share their experience. So, and give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the French flag now. Excellent. So, first location, Montpellier, the south of France. It's when it comes to location, it's the capital of the region known as and help me with the pronunciation here, Languedoc-Roussillon. And correct me. Located in the south of France, Montpellier has 3 universities totaling about 50,000 students. It is a center for international dance and music festivals, and it's got at least in the number of years leading up to 2020, had a growing population exceeding just about 300,000 people. It's just 6 miles from the Mediterranean Sea and is close to a number of other major destinations, including fairly close to Barcelona, Spain. And by plane, getting to Paris is about 70 minutes, and London is about 95 minutes away by plane, and Barcelona, a short 50 minutes. So talking a little bit about the location here, Brianna, what did you appreciate most about the location, the city of Montpellier, and where you were studying?
I was really, really pleased with the location. Personally, I was someone that wanted to travel as many weekends as possible. And from Montpellier, it was very easy for me to get to a lot of the other places in France via train or bus. I used planes very sparingly, though they are a lot less expensive within Europe than it is to get from here to Europe. But also, I was able to go to the little country of Andorra there, which is not too far by bus, though it's a bit complicated because it's so small. And Switzerland is very close. Northern Italy is very close. For my biggest gripe about the location is the airport in Montpellier is quite small, despite it being the 7th largest city. So if you do want affordable flights, I personally needed to save the money, so I would take a bus to Toulouse or Nice or Marseille before taking a flight, which made it really long, but I used flights pretty sparingly for that reason. That said, you can get to Toulouse for a $5 bus ticket or a $1 bus ticket sometimes, and you can get to Marseille for within $10 to $15. So in terms of money, like it's like a money versus time thing. If you can afford to fly out of Montpellier, you can fly anywhere, but it'll be more expensive. But if you want to save the money and you have the time, you can like piece things together in order to get pretty much anywhere in Europe very cheap. Um, I mean, I went a lot of places really, and it was all very inexpensive. But yeah, that was my biggest gripe, was just that that airport is not very major, but it's a great location in France. I loved the weather. I loved how close it was to some of those other countries, and I did prefer it to Paris personally. Um, Maybe not in terms of like, I'm not going to say that Montpellier as a city is more exciting than Paris, but I like the location better. And Marseille and Nice ended up being probably my favorite cities in France, having been to quite a lot of them at this point. And they're quite close to Montpellier, but Montpellier itself, not as much of a tourist destination. So it's a great place to live and be really close to some of the best tourist destinations. So for me, it was pretty ideal. Everything other than the airport was pretty ideal.
And Rebecca, Brianna touched on the weather. What was the weather like? You were there in the spring semester. You arrived in January. What was the weather like for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was fantastic. Like coming out of upstate New York in January, where it was like, 20s and snow and stuff, and then getting to Montpellier and it's literally like 60s and 70s every single day, like probably an average of like 71 every day and sunny every day. Like, I mean, I don't know what I think. I feel like the weather in Genesee is probably comparable to Binghamton, where it's like,
Oh, it's really bad in the West.
well, yeah, like
I'm
especially
saying this is like I'm from downstate and then I went to sorry, I'm sorry.
yeah, like I don't know. It's in the spring semester in Binghamton is never very nice weather. So that was like fantastic. It was almost too good to be true sometimes, it felt like. And yeah, I don't know. Should I touch on other things too about the location or?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was kind of, I didn't have like, I don't know, I was very confused about traveling from Montpellier when I went, also because like around this time was really when COVID started picking up last year, which was like about a month into the program when I was like finally like got my classes figured out and like kind of got like a group of people to go with. So it was really when I would have probably started traveling, but that was when like COVID hit Italy and countries started shutting their borders. And we were like, I didn't really want to like, go to some other country and then be like not able to come back. So that was like frustrating because I really wanted to travel. But yeah, it was like, I didn't get as much out of that as I wanted to. And I do also agree with Brianna about the airport was like confusing and not always very easy to deal with. I had like classes on Fridays and Mondays, which I would not recommend if you can avoid that because I wanted to travel on weekends, but like in order to actually get places without spending a lot of money at the Montpellier airport, if you wanted to do like go to a bus to Toulouse and then fly out from there, or Marseille or wherever, like I just wouldn't have had time for that.
Yeah.
From like my small weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I kind of like screwed myself over with that too. So I definitely didn't travel as much as I'd wanted to, but I was still able to go like kind of around the area. Like I was able to go to Paris and different smaller cities like right nearby Montpellier. Like you can get to a lot of really nice cities just from like a bus ride to, and it's like it'll be like €8. Like it's like nothing, it's crazy. So that's mostly what I did, which like I still loved, just getting to know like the immediate area because it's gorgeous. Like there's palm trees, there's the Mediterranean right there. It's all this like beautiful old architecture. So the area, like I don't know why you would ever go to Paris when you can go to Montpellier. Like it was just beautiful.
I mean, I think I just loved being so close to the Riviera because if you see that little dot of Monaco, basically the Riviera is like the area in between there and Monaco. I mean, I guess it probably extends the other side as well, but like the really famous part of the Riviera is just like all in this area. So Monaco is a micro country, by the way, as is Andorra. So there's two like super small, really interesting countries right near Montpellier. But then like the Riviera itself, to me, is the most beautiful part of France. And again, I have been to like most of the regions. So I really loved being that close to the Riviera. And if I had been there the full year and caught more of the better beach weather, I would have loved to go back to the Riviera and see like more of the little things. I'm not really a fan of tour companies, but I actually saw a lot of it on like 1 day tour, which was like obviously super short stops at places. But just because I was like, I want to see these places, but like the weather is very quickly gonna turn. It was never bad weather. It just got to be like 70s or whatever, which for me, I'm not hot enough to swim. So, but that area of France is really, really nice. And I would have been very happy to just take more day trips throughout the Riviera if I had like saved more time for it or if it were warmer.
Excellent. Thank you both for talking about that. And obviously, yeah, being in the south of France, great weather and the excellent beach and the Riviera there. This is on the left, a photo from the Comédie, the beautiful central square in Montpellier. And on the right, a photo of some of the rooftops. You've got this mix of old architecture and new architecture. In terms of like zooming in, you all spent a little time talking about location in terms of getting to other parts of France and getting to other countries. Zooming in more on just like a daily moving about the city. How did you get around going between your residence and the university? Brianna, you want to talk about that?
Yes, absolutely. I will say this was one of the things that was a little bit less favorite for me about Montpellier is just that there's a really big contrast between the different areas of the city. So like the Comédie area is so beautiful, and some of the people in my program were living there. So they were just like in the middle of that every day. But the area over by the school is a lot more residential, and there's not very much to do there, and it's not very like flashy and French feeling or whatever. So that's where I was living. And so I felt a little bit sad about that sometimes because I didn't get to like spend every day in like the central square. That said, I was still very happy with where I was living because I was with like such an amazing host mom. And my host mom's house was 5 minutes from the dorms, which is where a lot of my friends were living. So overall, I think it was the best place for me. But I will say like the more like residential city areas of the city are pretty just like casual, which is fine. One of the best things though is there is a tram system. It's very easy to get from there to the Comédie where everyone likes to hang out and everything. And if I wanted to take the time to go there every day, I could have. It would have taken me 25 minutes. I just had a lot of work because I was traveling on the weekends and like doing all the work in the middle of the week. So the tram is really easy. But that said, from the dorm that you'll most likely be in to the school, it's mostly a walk because you can go like one tram stop, but then you have to walk the rest of it because the tram, it goes like through central areas of the city. It doesn't really go like up and down some of like the smaller streets with like what you need. So I was walking a lot. I was walking. If I didn't take the tram, it was a half-hour walk to school. If I did take it, it was 20 minutes because you could take the tram a half mile in the right direction. I'm a really big fan of the tram system, but yeah, it didn't like eliminate the walking. That said, I liked walking a lot, but some days it was a little tiring or whatever if you want to go there quickly or if you want to go home in between classes.
Sure.
Something
Rebecca,
really
how did you get around the city then?
Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar experience. My host mom was out in like the more residential area. Um, and so but I was only like a 20-minute walk to the school, which was great. And it was actually like a beautiful walk. Like, I don't know. I found that neighborhood to be very like just lovely. And it's always beautiful weather. Like you're never walking out in like slush or snow or rain. Like it's always like literally ideal weather. So I was very happy to be walking every day for 20 minutes. And then yeah, there's the tram system that takes you right into like the Comédie and everything. And I was able to go like every day after my classes let out, I would just take the tram down to Comédie and like wander around. And it was so great. Like I loved it. I went in all the different areas of the city and I found all these different little like shops to check out. And I mean it's gorgeous. Like it's so like it feels like a fantasy land sometimes. It's so like just nice. Um, and the only complaint that I had about the like public transport system was that where I lived, I didn't live close enough to the tram stop. Like it was maybe like a, I don't know, 15-minute walk from my house to the nearest tram stop, which is how you get to Comédie. But I would be able to take like a bus usually to get from my house bus to tram. Which was fine most of the time, but the buses stopped running at 9 p.m., which was like annoying because the trams kept going until like 1 a.m. So a lot of times my friends would be like out, at night, like meeting at like 9:30 p.m. or whatever, like downtown. And I couldn't get there because I didn't want to walk by myself, like in the dark to the tram. Like, I mean, the city is very safe for the most part. I mean, there's certain areas where you have to be really careful, but like, I don't know. I was like, this just doesn't, you know, I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable with that. And like they have like Ubers and stuff like that, but that's expensive and I didn't want to do that like every night. So that was my only complaint, but that was mostly just because like where my house was located. But yeah.
Yeah.
Felt safe on the tram, use the tram regularly. There was also the bus option, but obviously those public transportation options have a limited capacity. Brianna, you were going to say
I
something?
felt like the public transportation was really, really good in all of France and in Montpellier. It's just that some of the residential areas don't necessarily like aren't as close to it, especially because a lot of people that live in those residential areas have cars because they're like real adults with families and stuff. But honestly, I thought it was really, really good. There are so many options for transportation in that area of France that I was constantly blown away by like how easy it was for me to do things. So despite that I complained a bit about the walk, like I really think the public transportation is like immaculate.
Excellent, great. So transitioning from like location to now talking about the academics and the university, one of the things that I want to mention, we left it on the slides here because all of our past students have done this. In the past, the program would consist, if you were going in the fall, there would be a 3-week pre-semester in French intensive program. That program is being eliminated and phased out going forward. So I mentioned, I wanted to leave it here because any student, any future student who's talking to a past student, the past students will always talk about the pre-semester and then transitioning to the start of the semester. That is going to be phased out beginning next year. So there will be no more pre-session going on. There still is an orientation for international students. So something that more resembles Rebecca's experience of just a short, about a 1 week or less, orienting new international students. So Brianna, I'm going to ask you, don't talk about the pre-session because no students will have it in the future. So
Okay.
Focusing just on the semester, well, I guess I want to give a little more information. This program is geared specifically towards students who are at the intermediate or advanced levels in French language. It would not be suitable for students who are at the beginner or no French language level. Many of our students who choose to participate on this program are already French majors or minors at the the benefit of this program is students are eligible to enroll in any course offered by Montpellier University, which we mentioned has about 50,000 students. And then there's also additional courses that are offered specifically for students who are studying French. So Brianna, what was your schedule consisting of? Did you take a mix of the QED, the RI courses, as well as some of the integrated courses?
I did, yes. I believe I was taking 3 of the RI courses and 2 integrated courses. I don't, okay. I would say for the RI courses, the expectations were pretty low. Like I definitely had classmates that they had only done like 1 semester of French before or something like that. And the teachers definitely like discouraged speaking English in class, but like they would speak it supplementally, like they would make sure everyone understood. So in terms of like how fluent do you need to be to succeed in those classes, not very fluent, though some of them maybe the expectations of the homework will be a little higher. Homework is not really a thing as much for the integrated classes, but it's something they do for the international students because we are more comfortable having homework. So like the homework is really not too bad, but there's maybe a lot of busy work just because they think that's what we do and what we want. That said, like I learned some in those classes, but I also felt like the expectations were not very high. They weren't too hard to manage. Whereas the integrated courses were pretty hard just because there's not very much of a support system. So I made the mistake of planning to take my French literature credits there, whereas apparently French literature is not really something you do much until like your master's, and for whatever reason, like the literature studies are totally different. So the classes that I did have available to me were like not very good matches for what I was looking for. And they were like these huge lectures where they were talking about like medieval poetry. And I was just like, I'm not at a level that I can like look at medieval language. So I had a bit of trouble with that. And what I would do to avoid it is just plan what integrated courses you're going to do like way beforehand and really think about like whether or not you can do it in French and whether or not it's the best thing to do in French. Don't leave like very important things that you need to do and then be like the only time and place I can do it is right here, because I think I would have had a lot more fun just like exploring a topic in French if it didn't have so much writing on it, where I was like, I have to learn French medieval poetry because otherwise I won't have my literature credit. So it was a bit stressful. That said, in the integrated classes, you won't be the only foreigner, even if there's not other Americans from the program, because there's plenty of Erasmus students there. So you shouldn't feel stupid about like participating if you're not going to say it perfectly or whatever, because they won't even know you're American. They'll just know that you're not like a native French speaker, but you could be German, you could be any of these other countries. There's a lot of foreign exchange students there, and they were very willing to help me as well. I mean, one of the most like helpful classmates to me was like a German student who like spoke English, French, and German. I was like, good for you. And he was able to like help me study for it and stuff. So I'm definitely glad I took some integrated courses. I think it just may have been better if I picked what subject I was going to do a little more carefully and didn't like have too much pressure on it.
Great. We're using some language that our audience may not be familiar with, but the university classes where you're sitting alongside native students, those are the integrated classes. Those are the courses offered by the university where you're integrating into the university. The courses designed for visiting international students, those are the QED or the RI courses, the international relations courses for visiting students. Rebecca, what was your distribution of courses?
So I was taking 2 RI courses and 3 integrated ones, because I like went into the semester like I was like, I just need to come back from this with 1 French credit. Like doesn't matter what it is, I just need to get credit for 1 Binghamton French class from this whole semester, which I'm taking every class in French, it shouldn't be that hard. which I think was probably a solid approach, like if you can afford to do that in your schedule, because that really left me with my options like wide open.
A lot of flexibility.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And so I really enjoyed my RI classes. They have ones there that are like more like grammar based or like more like learning French, like the language. And I didn't want to take that because I felt like I'd already taken those at Binghamton. So I took ones that were more based on like the culture and like art history and like, I don't know, like the history of the region and like that sort of thing. And that was like so cool. Like, we went on field trips every week out in the area, and it was like the whole class was in French, and I felt like those classes were more like an upper level in the RI area. And so the students there like were all French majors like me, and the whole class was conducted in French. It was like I felt more like, I don't know, at my level. And so I really enjoyed those, and the teachers are very helpful. And then for the integrated ones, it was very hard to schedule those. Like, I will have to complain about the administration at that school. And if you ask anyone who's ever dealt with this program, I'm sure they will say the same thing, because they are just difficult to work with sometimes. Like, it was really a confusing process for me to register for classes, and honestly, I didn't square everything away until like a month later. I don't know. I was having a lot of issues with that. Because I don't
It's
know.
an incredibly bureaucratic system, and one that is, if you just look at the spelling of bureaucracy, it has its origins in the French language, and a state university in France is a prime example of that kind of bureaucratic process. So your experience is not unique to you, Rebecca. We've had a lot of students who have run into that same issue as relates to registering for classes and getting everything sort of set.
Yeah. So I ended up taking like a music class where I was doing choir, which like if you like to do that sort of thing, if you like to sing, I would highly recommend, because that's where I like made friends, was in choir. And I like still keep in touch. It was a lot of Erasmus students that I like kind of bonded with, because we were like, you know, like we don't speak French that well. We speak a little slower, and it's great. So I still keep in touch with my friends from choir, and like that was a really great experience for me. I was taking like a French history. It was like Histoire contemporaine pour les non-historiens or something like that. I was like, okay, I'm a non-historian. So that one was like, I don't know. I don't have to go into all of them. But basically, the administration was difficult when I was registering for the integrated classes. Registering for the RI classes was so easy. Yeah, so just be wary of that, and don't expect the integrated classes to necessarily transfer that well back to the SUNY classes. Yeah.
It's all about talking with your home campus. This is a good example where Rebecca's at Binghamton. She's working directly with her home university French department. Brianna is at Geneseo. She was working directly with our French department. How courses, the word is articulate, is really dependent on your home university, as well as what is your major and what are you seeking? What kind of credit are you seeking? So the other thing I'll mention about academics is that Brianna was getting at this as well. The RI classes are designed for foreigners. They do incorporate more of what in the US we refer to as continuous assessment, whether that's through tests, quizzes, and homework, whereas the integrated classes, they are following a French model. So it's very common for a class to have maybe only 1 or 2 assignments and 1 or 2 exams, and that to count for absolutely everything. So the integrated classes, I think Brianna used the word high stakes from the stance of what is it going to satisfy for your requirements, but also high stakes in the sense that you will only have maybe 1 or 2 assignments that make up your entire grade. Would you both say that was all accurate?
Yeah.
Yes, that was what was difficult about it for me, because there were 1 or 2 like very hard and complex assignments where I was like, I know that I can write a paper in French, but I don't know how well I've like absorbed everything from the course and how well it's going to stack up against people that like understood the full lectures and didn't like understand pieces of them. it ended up being fine, but I was definitely getting scared near the end about like whether or not because also they grade differently. So for them, like a C is not very bad. It's like pretty good. It's like maybe the average. But for me, I was like, I don't want a C. So spoiler alert, I did get a C in one of them, but my professor was very happy with me. So I was like, I guess this just isn't that bad to you.
That's a really good point when it comes to academics. Academic culture in the United States, if you are an A student and you're accustomed to getting all A's, studying abroad is a really interesting time to learn that that is not the culture of every institution around the world. The French scale uses 0 to 20, and basically 20s are impossible to earn. Impossible to earn, especially as an undergraduate student. So moving on to housing, there's a number of different options in this program. Some students, and when you guys were talking about the different locations, you mentioned the university dormitories. There's also a host family option. There's what are called boarding arrangements. But the international office at Montpellier is the one who kind of helps guide students on this. Rebecca, what was your housing choice?
So I did the host family, which like I would 100% recommend. Like, I don't know, if you're going for, I picked this program over other programs just because it was 100% language immersive. And I really wanted to be with a host family to make sure that I was like continuing to speak French, like not just at school. And I think that was like one of the best decisions that I could have made. My host family was incredible. And
what was the makeup of your host family?
Oh, so it was a husband and wife, and some cats. And yeah, they were both like
meals together.
Yeah, we had dinner every night, and they were just like, it was so great to have that support system and like to have people looking out for you, because I know like my friends who were in the dorms, I mean, a lot of them were just in like single rooms by themselves, and like we had obviously the other students, but we were all like, you know, foreigners to that city. So it was like really, really positive for me to have a family who was from Montpellier and spoke French and could kind of advocate for me in situations and like help me navigate the tram system and all that sort of thing. And also, I mean, you get free like home cooked meals every single night. Like, I don't know how else to convince you. That was amazing. So
that's perfect. That's perfect. Brianna,
yeah,
you also stayed with a host family. Is that? I'm sorry. I'm just. I'm gonna. If you all don't mind, forgive me. I'm gonna push our pace a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to try to give an abridged version of, because I actually stayed both places. I stayed in the dorms during the pre-session, then I stayed with one host family, and then I had to change to another one. I heard a lot of people talking smack about the dorms before I went there, but I actually would say if you want to stay in the dorm, do it. The room is small, but you have the room to yourself. The management for the dorms is not very good. That said, like, you have your own space, you have a lot of shelf space, you have your own small bathroom. It's really small, but it is yours, and nobody is interfering with any of that. And the location is good. The dorms do not belong to one college. They belong like collectively to all the colleges, so you can meet other students. The biggest positive of the dorms is that a lot of your classmates are staying there, so like it can be easier socially. That said, I'm really glad that I moved to a host family. That was planned all along, by the way. In the olden days when we had the pre-session, you like stay in the dorms during it and then go to your host family. So that wasn't a change. But then I went to a host family, and I did have an issue with like some major construction going on in the house that I didn't really feel like it was habitable. And they did try to warn me, but I just did not understand like how massive it was. And Sam had to really step in and try to help me move host families, because the administration at the school did not like that I wanted to move. But we eventually found somewhere else, and I was able to leave and go to my lovely host family situation, where I was living with Christine, who was a single mother of 2 children who were both now in their 20s and moved out, and she just liked having, college-age students with her still. So it was me and one other American student from my program from Seattle, and they just kind of stepped up and were like, well, we'll take her in, and that's how I was able to move there, and that was all great. We had dinner together every night. Christine made us dinner. I guess the only thing that was a little hard was, we are expected to like all be responsible for the space, and like there were some things about our living habits that were different. For example, they don't own drying machines in most of France. They own washers, but they think dryers are kind of like a luxury thing. And for me, it was hard to like get in sync with like the washing schedule, with like the hanging it outside during certain hours of the day. And like, so there were little things that I did as an American that annoyed my host mom, and sometimes she had to scold me. But overall, I loved her a lot, and I'm really glad that I did live with the host family, despite that I initially did not want to, because I was worried about just social things. I was worried, like, what if they don't like me? What if like I'm an American? What if like we're butting heads? That happened like a teeny tiny bit, but it was always in good faith. And she really was like a second mother figure to me while I was there. And she made us speak French, even though 2 of us spoke English. But she was like, I don't speak English, so you can't speak English.
Well, you both hit on some really important points. And one of the things that I'm hearing from both of you is like, depending on what your goals are for choosing to study abroad, a housing situation can really help you achieve those goals. If you really want to go and immerse yourself in the language, a host family is one of the best ways to do it. Even if you're living with another American, your host mother is going to insist you're here, speak French, and they're going to sit down with you, have meals in French. And they're also, I think host family is one of the best things that they can do. They are cultural mediators. It becomes a safe space to come and ask and say, I had this interaction earlier today. A man said this to me. What did that mean? Or my classmate said this to me. What does that mean? You have a built-in cultural mediator who has your back. So I'm a big advocate, especially for students who want to learn the language, to consider a host family. But there's no shame, and there's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, I'm a person who really values my own space, and I'd rather live in the dorms and have my own space, and that will work better for my mental health, my physical health, and whatever else, just to have the best experience. So balancing your goals with knowing yourself is really important in choosing that housing option.
Absolutely. And real quick, my host mom also set up for me to go meet her daughter, because I was visiting the city where her daughter lived. So like, it also like was able to like let me meet someone else close to my own age while I was traveling, and she introduced me to all her friends in Nice and everything. So
It builds your network.
Yeah.
So the Montpellier program follows a pretty similar calendar as we do at Geneseo. The fall semester is mid-August through mid-December, and the spring semester just is a bit earlier. The arrival for the spring is early January to mid-May. There you can also see the application deadlines if you're interested in the fall or the academic year. Apply by March 15th if you're interested in the spring semester. It does have an early deadline, September 1st. That's because there's a lot of work that has to happen between September 1st and arrival in early January to apply, be accepted, get your visa. We already talked about weather and the dates and stuff like that. Then how to apply. If you are ready to apply, you create a website, you submit your application. Applying is exactly that. It's applying. If I apply, do I have to go? No, absolutely not. But when a student applies, they'll submit a personal statement, a judicial review form, and submit some recommendations for this particular program. Because students are expected to be at a certain proficiency of French language, you will need to get at least one language recommendation for this, as well as 2 academic recommendations. So this requires a total of 3 recommendations. The judicial review form allows the study abroad office to see if you have any prior conduct infractions or a pattern of behavior that would be concerning while you're abroad. And the personal statement just explains why did you choose this program and how is it connecting with your academic goals. Applications are reviewed after the deadline. Then a student is offered a place. You sign your paperwork and you submit your deposit, and that's the way a student says, yes, I intend to participate. And that's how you confirm your place. The cost, I'll open up the cost sheet here, and Rebecca and Brianna, I'm curious just to get your perspective if you think that the cost sheet is accurate to your expenses or not. we won't spend a lot of time talking about this too much because this is something that is unique for each individual student. But I'm just curious if you think that this was somewhat accurate for your experience. This is actually the cost sheet from your year, 2020. Rebecca, would you say that the New York State residents who spent?
I don't even remember.
It's so hard.
Um,
These are up top for our amount charged by the study abroad office. This is the SUNY tuition, and there's really no changing of this
Yeah.
amount. What it does change are the amounts down here. The visa, every student has to get a visa. Airfare, a lot of students find airfare less than the $1,600, which we have written here, estimated. Accommodations, this depends on where you choose to live, but I would say that this is probably kind of accurate for the host family arrangement. Food, well, sometimes the host family means that you're going to add the accommodations with the food because your family is preparing meals for you. The one number that I would be curious for both of you, your personal expenses. This is the fun money amount. Rebecca, any comment on kind of how those numbers appear to you?
I mean, the only thing that I'm looking at right now is books. I didn't have to buy any books. So that $400, I mean, I just didn't need to buy any books for my classes. And personal expenses, I don't even remember. I'm sorry, I'm like not very helpful. Also, like my semester we were, as I said, a lot more limited because of
Cut
COVID
short, yeah.
and cut short. So that number is also hard for me to estimate. Yeah, I'm sorry, I really still
No, that's all
remember.
right. Brianna, does this look accurate for you?
I don't think some of the individual numbers are accurate, but maybe the overall is accurate. For airfare, if you're careful and you are a little time flexible about when you can go, you can get tickets to France one way for like 150 to 200 from New York City, generally throughout the year. Or if you get like a two-way one, like 400-ish. That just depends how date flexible and time flexible you are and which airports you're using. As a general rule, the more traffic an airport is, the lower some tickets can be because it's like supply and demand. So like I think the airfare was like way overblown for me. I would say that I did not pay 400 for books, but I did have to buy some. I would say maybe it was 100. For health insurance, I don't think it was as expensive as that. I did have
And
to pay.
actually, the French law just changed, so they're going to actually start including students in the French health insurance at no cost. So I think that this is actually going to go to zero in the future.
That's great. I think I paid like 130 or something, and it wasn't just health. It also included some other like forms of insurance that they have you like pay some insurance for the housing and for just like a
Yeah.
general like civil like
Social Security, they call it French Social
yeah,
Security.
like if you like create problem damage on public property, there's like a little insurance for that. I would say my personal expenses were very high because I had been like planning and saving to travel on the weekends. I don't know exactly what they were, but it was by far my most expensive semester. But if I hadn't wanted to do that and I had been trying to like cut corners everywhere, the biggest expense would have been just the program fee being on top of tuition. I actually was confused about it in the beginning and I thought it was like instead of our regular tuition. So unfortunately, it kind of caught me by surprise. But if you read it carefully, you should know that. But yeah, I think the housing is very affordable. If you're with a host family, the food is included. That said, I budgeted nothing for food because of that. And then I ended up spending some on food because, you eat dinner together, you may or may not eat breakfast and lunch together, or they may just like, they'll have some breakfast food. Some of them don't include lunch at all. My host mom was pretty good about letting us kind of snack on things if we wanted to, but she didn't like guarantee lunches. So I budgeted nothing for food, but I probably did spend a decent amount on it. I ate at the cafeteria at the school a lot, and that was very affordable.
Mhm.
But it wasn't zero, so I should have had it in my budget.
And Brianna makes a really good point about, just recognizing that there is a program fee. This is also going to change considerably in the future because much of this $2,930 is part of the pre-session, which is also being eliminated. So in the future, we expect that the program fee for both the fall and the spring will appear something more like this $1,300. But every student still does pay SUNY tuition when they study abroad. Great. The last thing on here is just some resources that I encourage students to check out. And that's another nice photos there. But my last question to you all, and then that'll be it for the day, is are you glad you did it? Would you recommend it to others? And is there any advice you'd offer to a student who's considering it? Brianna, you look ready to answer those questions.
I am absolutely glad I did it. It was my best semester. Maybe not academically because of the weird things I mentioned, but in terms of just like experience, it was definitely my best semester. I was really, really happy, and it helped me become a more confident person because I found out, hey, like I can solo travel and I can navigate Paris and I can make friends with people in like a shorter timeline. That was one of my biggest concerns because I was like, I've never been under pressure to make friends in a period of like a few weeks so that I have someone to hang out with. So all of that was good. And if you have saved for it and planned for it really well, like I did, you can have some really great travel experiences for like very good prices. So I would recommend it. I pretty much liked everything, but I would say my advice is advocate for the experience you want. Nobody is going to hand that to you. They will hand you all the resources you need to get it, but they won't hand you the experience you want. You have to create it. You have to make the friends, you have to make whatever travel plans that are important to you, whether that's just like neighboring towns or within France, or whether you want to go farther than that. You need to figure those things out. You need to plan for them, and you need to pick the housing that's going to be good for you. Just pick the classes that are going to be good for you. Just make sure that you really think it out and you really advocate for what you want, and you can make it a really great experience.
Excellent. I'm so happy to hear that was a positive, overall your experience was great. And I love what you said about, all of the resources are there to make it happen, but it's up to you to make it happen. That's a really great point. Rebecca, anything, would you recommend it? Did you like it? And any advice?
Yeah, I mean, I would 100% recommend this program. It was really unfortunate that I was only there for half of it. Because I wish that I could have had that full semester there. But what I did have was so great, and yeah, but definitely recommend it. In terms of advice, I mean, I would wholeheartedly recommend the host family if you feel like that's right for you. If you, I don't know. I mean, you know yourself best, but like for me, that was like, if you want that language immersive and like culturally immersive experience, like, I don't know, and you don't mind like sharing your space a little bit with people, I felt like the host family was like absolutely the right option for me. And yeah, definitely I would second Brianna's advice 100%. It was hard to like make friends at first for me because I take a long time to kind of warm up to people. But if you can just kind of like try to get past that and like just try like hanging out with people and like putting yourself out there, and I don't know, taking a risk and going for a weekend with some people like that you don't really know that well. Like, I don't know, that's like worth it. So
All really good advice, and really important when studying abroad is it's inherent that stepping out of your comfort zone, we hope that it always yields dividends, a big return on investment. There's that temporary discomfort, but we hope that there's a big return on investment once you work your way through that discomfort. So I second that as well. The last thing I'll mention is Brianna did an excellent job putting together a wealth of written resources, which our office will be distributing to students who get beyond the application phase. It's got a lot of really great information around visas and around local getting around and things to do and stuff like that. So we are immensely thankful to her for that, and we will continue to share that resource as student mobility resumes. And the last thing we'll mention is tomorrow, Thursday, February 11th, there is obviously we didn't really talk about COVID at all, and that is the elephant in the room on all of this. There is a session that's going to talk specifically about study abroad and COVID. Obviously, student mobility is still suspended, and as of today, February 10th, 2021, all student mobility is suspended through the summer semester, but we are hopeful that Geneseo and SUNY will resume student mobility for next fall, the start of next academic year. And so if you are a student watching this video now, please reach out to the Study Abroad office. We want to get you application started for next year. And if you have any questions, contact the Study Abroad office at studyabroad@geneseo.edu, and we will be happy to connect you and guide you through the process. So that's it for me, folks. Brianna and Rebecca, thank you both so much. Thank you for making the time, and it was great to talk with you and hear your experience.
Thank you.
See you all. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.